Hello, my name is Paolo, and I am from the island of Malta. I am 24 years old, and I'm going to teach you the series of the Maltese language. So, this Maltese language, it is obviously spoken in the island of Malta and Gozo, and a country of around 500,000 people, so where around I think 90% of people know Maltese and even speak Maltese. Some Maltese people would mix with English in some areas, but mainly almost everybody understands Maltese and Malta. There are also Maltese speakers just around the world who had migrated around 60, 70 years ago to Australia, to England, USA, and Canada, and even obviously their children and their grandchildren. So there would be the first degree, second degree, third degree speakers, third degree Maltese people, third generation, sorry, first generation, second generation, third generation. So this language is mainly derived from Arabic. I mean, for me, I don't know how people see it, but for me, Maltese is a dialect of Arabic linguistically. I'm not saying like culturally or something like that, but linguistically, for me, Maltese is a dialect of Arabic with many loanwords from Italian language and Sicilian. And recently, like in these past 200 years, also there are quite English influences, and especially now with technological advances. I would say that the basic structure and the grammar is quite Arabic. Then that has many loanwords from Italian, from Sicilian, and then maybe like those last 10% of the languages, which is derived from English, but it is still conjugated in the Arab and the Semitic way. So this first lesson, I'm going to teach the alphabet. So there are 24 consonants and 6 vowels, which comprise these 30 letters. And now I'm going through them one by one. So the first one is A, such as aeroplan. I mean, sometimes you would need the to pronounce it. Generally you would say aeroplan. There would be that slight You don't really say it aeroplan. You can, but generally you would say the similar to like the alif in the Arabic. You would have that hamza on top, whereas on below, I think, which would show that you need the to really pronounce it. So aeroplan, which means airplane. Then there is balloon, which means ball. This is derived from, I think, pallone with a p, but it's turned into balloon. Now, even though b is pronounced as b, sometimes it is pronounced as p. B changes to p when the b sound is at the end of the word. So you'd say Habib. You don't really say it Habib, which means friend. So you say Habib, but then you'd say Habiba, not Habiba, of course. So it is pronounced Habib, Habiba, Habiba, which means female friend. And also sometimes the B is pronounced as P when it is followed by certain consonants, not all consonants. So you would say bitha, which means like courtyard or as yard maybe. But then in plural it is ptihi with a P. You don't really say it ptihi. Then there's bitcha, which means thing like or as part like din al-bitcha, this part, but then the plural pchayach. You say it with a p, not a b. There are also other consonants which, when followed with a b, change it into a p. Then there's ch, such as in the word chirasa, ch, which means cherry. Yeah, which starts with the same ch, cherry. Then there is d, Dar. Dar means house or home. Dar. Now, d also sometimes changes into a t. When it is at the end of the word, like huwa read. He wanted. He wanted. Read. You don't say it read. You say read. But then, obviously, when it is not at the end of the word, huma ridu. They wanted. So, huwa read. Huma ridu. Ridu with a d. They wanted. And also, just like with the b, when it has a consonant, some, not all consonants, but some consonants after it, such as the verb yithak, yithak, which means he laughs. I laugh, you laugh, laugh, not love, of course. Huwa yithak, you don't say it huwa yidhak, yithak, but then you say huwa, he, huwa dahak, dahak, yithak, dahak. When you have tool, tool means it means entrance. When you, or else like dahla maybe, tool, the act of going inside. You say it with a t, tool. But then the verb is dahal. He went in, dahal. He entered, dahal. With a d, of course. And there is the verb emmen. Now, as you see, I said it with a almost like emmen, which means he believed. Jiena nemmen, inti temmen. I believe, you believe. Then there's f, such as forchetta, which means fork. Yeah, so f. Then there's j, such as in jobon, which means cheese. This is definitely derived from Arabic il-jobon. We say il-jobon, and in singular, this is like collective. One is jobna, collectively it is jobon, and plural, when you know the exact number, you say jobnet, jobnet, jobon, cheese. And also when it is found at the end of the word, such as tijich, you say it with a ch. You don't pronounce it tijij, you say tijich, which means chicken. This is collective, but then with the singular, you say tijija, tijija. This is derived from Arabic. I think the word is dajaj and dajaja. So at the end, it is pronounced as tijich, and then tijija. And then there's g, gadja. So as we've seen with j, obviously j is pronounced j, not ch, because it is at the center. I mean, it is not at the end of the word. So gadja, g, which means, sorry, the word is gadja, which means cage. But then when the g is at the end of the word, such as zvok, it is pronounced with a k. But then you would say yizvoga. I mean, this is the verb, which means to vent, or else to rent out. I mean, when you are like, when you have this, when you want to say something because you just want to say something to clear your conscience, maybe something, and you say yizvoga, zvogait with a g. But the noun, because it is at the end of the word, the g, you say it k, not g, zvok. Then there's this famous ein. Ein. This ein is generally silent, but not always. And this is obviously derived from the Arabic. I mean, one would say maybe we have the ein for historic reasons, but I do believe that it still has a very valuable function in the language. This is mostly silent, but I'm going to show when it is not. So, when the ein is followed with the a, the ein is basically silent. Maybe it's, and you say asfur, asfur, which means bird. Maybe the a is slightly longer. You say it asfur, but not really. You simply say asfur, which means bird, and plural is asafar, birds, lasfur. Then there is also the verb elep. Note that elep is pronounced with the p at the end because the b is at the end of the word. Elep means to defeat somebody, to overcome something. Elep. This is pronounced with the e. It's like there is no I almost. Now I'm going to skip just one. I'm going to the O. When there is a O, you also say it simply as a O, lodwa, which means the morning. Like you could say, for example, lodwa taiba, which means good morning. It literally means the morning, the good. Lodwa taiba, but it means good morning. Now, when you have the E, it changes either to A, I mean y, or as a y. You don't say ira, you say it eira, which means jealousy. Eira. When you have this other word, you can either say it idly or as maybe idly. They're both correct. Idly and idly, which means tell me, idly. I think in Arabic this would be kulli. If I say, for example, neidlek haja, neidlek haja. In Arabic, I think it is in kulluk haja. Then there's odwa, as we have said. Then when there's a u, the u sometimes changes to l or o, o. So you don't pronounce this as oda. You say it either euda or oda. For example, laudat as-salib, which means the wood of the cross. Then sometimes it is simply pronounced as o, omo. You swim, or jiena nom. I swim. It is written n ein u m. You don't say it now or noom. You say it nom. So u, when there's an ein and the u, it sometimes changes to L, sometimes to O, sometimes to O. I don't know if there are any other cases, but these are generally how this is. Then sometimes ein is found hidden at the end of the word with an apostrophe. This generally happens with verbs. I don't think that there are any other types of words which are not verbs, which have the, well, there are sometimes actually, such as suba, which means finger. Suba, it has an apostrophe at the end, but it is not that common. Usually it is with verbs, such as the verb tela, which means to go up. Tela. There is an ein, which is hidden. You don't pronounce it. It is as if there is no apostrophe. Tela, which means to go up. Then there is bella, which means to swallow something, or is to drink quite fast when you have to drink a lot. Bella. It has no particular pronunciation, that there is an ein in this form. In other forms, when you conjugate it, you would see the ein actually, but in this form, apostrophe, you say it bella. Then there is the other verb tefa. Tefa means he threw. I throw something. Now, you say it's tefa. Now, coincidentally, there's also another verb tefa without the apostrophe, so you might get confused. Is this tefa with an apostrophe or not? So with the apostrophe, it means to throw something, and without it, it means to turn off. Now you might ask, how can I know? If you had to hear it just by itself, you wouldn't really know. But in context, and even with different conjugations, you would know. Because if I had to say I throw, it would be jiena nitfa. with the apostrophe in the end. Jiena nitfa, apostrophe in the end. But if I had to say I turn off, jiena nitfi, not nitfa, nitfi, nitfi, and no apostrophes, just nitfi as you hear it. Then there's also beza, which means to be afraid. Beza, which is pronounced as if there is no apostrophe, but when you conjugate it, then you would see even in different forms there's an I. I'm just showing when it is in the form of apostrophe. Beza, to be afraid. Now, the ein, when it is found at the end of the word, it is pronounced as h, like a normal h of horse. The horse, I mean the horses. For example, in the word rafiq. Rafiq is someone who would lift something. So rafiq is a lifter. And you lift something, either when you lift weights, or as you have to lift a statue, for example, rafiq. But then in plural, rafia, you see the ein is not pronounced, rafia, but when it is at the end of the word, it is h. Then there's a verb. So the first one was the nom talagent, I think. The verb is zebach, which means he painted. It is pronounced with an ein at the end, with a h, because there's an ein at the end. Now, there is a variant of this. Sometimes it is this verb only. Sometimes it is written with the apostrophe at the end. And in fact, it has two conjugations. There are two variants of the same verb, but personally, I prefer zebach with the ein. Jiena nizboch, not jiena zba. They're both correct as far as I know, not fully sure, but I prefer with the ein at the end, which is pronounced as h. Firach, firach is pronounced with h. Klim firach. For example, one would say dan huwa klim firach. Dan huwa klim firach, which means these are useless words. You're just saying lots of words which make no sense. You say klim firach. Then there is this case, zazuch. The first ein, it is not pronounced because it is found at the center of the word, but then at the end, it is pronounced as a h. Zazuch, which means a male youth. If you had to say it in the female form, it is zazua. Both ein are silent, and then in plural, zazach. Z ein a, z a ein. There you'd say the h once again. Zazuch, zazua, zazach. And there's this letter, which is called akka, which is quite silent most of the time, just like the ein. But not always, of course, which I will also go through it. The first version, the first example is Anna. You pronounce it as if there is no H, Anna, which means happiness or being joyful, Anna. Then there is Deb. Deb means gold. There are some people who pronounce with a slight h, deheb, but it's not that common. The proper way, the official way of saying it is deb. You would find it deheb sometimes with the older population in some parts of Malta, or in Gozo, which is the other island, as deheb maybe, but generally deb, which means gold. Now, when it is found at the end of the word, the akka, which usually has no sound, it is pronounced as a h. So you have iblach, which means a stupid person, a stupid man, iblach. But it has an h, because in the female form it is bella. So a stupid man and a stupid woman. Iblach, and bella, pronounced without a h, like as if there is no h, as if there is no h. iblah and bala. And also you could say the same thing with ikrah. Ikrah means an ugly man. It is pronounced with a h at the end because it is found at the end of the word. So it is pronounced ikrah. But then the female form kara. You don't say kercha, you don't say belcha, or kercha. You say kara. Now there is this slight ambiguity because kara without an H also exists, which means rent. Now, if you had to hear it just by itself, you wouldn't really know, but with the context and even different conjugations, you would know. Like you would say il karat dar, which means the rent of the home. Il karat dar. It would obviously not be the ugly of the home. But even when if you had to conjugate it, it would be quite different because the word ikrah or kara with an H has its root k, r, and akka, whilst kara is k, r, y. So if I had to conjugate the verb of ikrah, I would say inkarrah. I make something ugly. Inkarrah. You would hear the h. But with kara to rent, it is hina nikri. It is not inkarrah, hina nikri. So like with different conjugations, which you don't really need to think much about for now, you would know the difference between kara with an H and kara without. And then when you have the H at the end of the word, just like this, such as in the verb bella, which means to amaze someone, you would say it with a h, bella, yena, in bella. I make somebody amazed. And even when you conjugate it, because you have the same verb, bella, plus the suffix at the end, which means me, bella, me, which means me, for me. You still say it bellahni, because it is like bellah and ni. So whereas bellah or belhet. Now this might get a bit more complicated for you, but when you have bellah plus the suffix, which means ni, I would say maybe for example, bellahni, he amazed me. Belhek, he amazed you. You still pronounce the h, even though it is at the center of the word, it's not in the end, you still pronounce it as a h. When you add these different suffixes or different conjugations. This might be a bit complicated for now. But generally, when it is in the center of the words, such as dep, you don't pronounce it. I mean, historically, the H was also pronounced just like the Arabic, but generally it has become quite silent in Maltese. Now, there are different cases when you pronounce it and not pronounce it, but we will not really go into it for now. Then there is I, immaginazione. Immaginazione, which obviously means imagination. It is derived from Italian immaginazione. The E sometimes is pronounced also E, like it has a Y. E. It's not just E. Like, for example, in the word tin. You don't say it tin or something else. Tin. To in tin. It's not pronounced tin. If it had to be tin, it would be T-I-N-N. Tin. But we say it teen. So you could see these differences between pronunciations of I. Immaginazione, you don't say immaginazione, you say immaginazione. But the word teen, which means fig, it actually means figs, because fig is then tina. There's this longer E, but longer with a Y, because there's also a different longer E, which I will go into just in this next page. which is the yeah. Yeah is a longer E, but you say it E. You say bandiera. You don't say bandera or something. You don't say bandira like you would say in teen. Bandera. So you have this E, E, E. Then you have the word teen. First you have the E, which is quite short. Immaginazioni. Immaginazioni. Then you have the longer E with a Y sound. Teen, 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 tina, fig, teen, E. Then there is the I, bandera, bandera. Just like you would not say tin, but teen, you would say bandera, not bandira. So you see this difference? Bandera, which means flag, flag by the way. Then there is the this word ebes, which means hard. Dan l'esami kien ebes. This exam was hard. Then there is y. Y, for example, yum. Yum means day. One day, yum. In plural, yem, for example, 5 days, yem. Yem, or else in the dual form, when you have two, you say humane, 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 yem, y. Then there's k, k. For example, kelp. Now, also notice here that the B is pronounced with the P. Il-kelp, kelp, which means dog. The dog, I mean dog, kelp, or il-kelp, the dog. With a B at the end. If you had the word kelba, which means a female dog, you pronounce it with a B. Kelba. This is a normal K sound, and I'm saying this because we have a different letter, which some might confuse with the K, but we'll go into it very soon. So K, normal K, like K in cake. I eat a cake. K, kelp. Kelp with the sound of a P at the end, unless it has a vowel after it. L, luminata. Luminata. This does not mean lemonade. I mean, it might be maybe lemonade. It is quite similar, but it generally means soft drink. Soft drink. Luminata. L. M. Perhaps M. I mean, when I was saying B, Ch, D, I think their actual name is B, Ch, or Che. I mean, if you had to say the name of the letter, you would say B, Ch, L, F, I think. But I was just pronouncing the actual letter by itself. B, Ch, D. So M, you might say it even M, but for this purpose, I'm going to say by itself. M, Mastrodascia. This is from Sicilian, I think, from Mastro di Ascia, Mastrodascia, and the Maltese became Mastrodascia, which means carpenter, a carpenter. M, N, Nanna Cola, which means ladybird. Nanna Cola, ladybird. Now, also you could say Nannu, which means grandfather. Nonno. I mean, in Maltese we have nanno, which is derived from nonno. And then we have nanna, which is derived from nonna, from Italian, which means grandmother. N. And there's O, operazioni, which is quite obvious, which is derived from Italian operazione, which means operation. O. You can say it O, but generally you have to make use of the generally to say it. I think at least that's how I say it. And then there's P, such as my name, Paolo, which in Maltese language would be Paolo, P, which is quite normal sound. You don't have a B or something. P, Paolo. And there's the This is when I earlier with the k, I said we have a similar sound, but not very, and I said I will look into it later. So this is it. The you say it not k, no, you don't say it k either. I mean, if you had to compare with if you had to compare with Arabic, in Arabic there is the kaf, there is the kaf, k. There is the kaf, which this is not any of those two. This, as far as I know, is quite closer to the hamza and the Arabic pronunciation, which is or else similar when you say in the English language water, water. But in some dialects, as far as I know, they say water. Or else when you exclaim uh oh, that sound. For example, Arnita, il Arnita, Arnita, which means octopus. There is also Amar, Amar, which means moon. Then there's R, Ras, which means head, your head. Then there is the S, Storia, which is derived directly from Italian storia as well. It is pronounced the same. Italians use the I, Maltese use the Y, but pronounced the same. Storia, story in terms of reading a story, not story when you have to go 5 stories up in a building. It would be solar, which I have not written down, but just to mark the difference. Right now, I just thought of it now. Then there is t, timpana. Timpana is a traditional Maltese food, which is similar to, it uses penne like the Italian penne, but it has like this crust on top as well. So then there's the U, such as università. So there is the U, such as università. Università is derived directly from Italian. It is precise, it is identical, which means, of course, university. Università. There are also different words such as umbrella, umbrella, with a U. And then if the U is followed by certain consonants, it is not always the case, but with some consonants, it would be pronounced oo, like a w. I mean, just like I have said with E, followed by some consonants become E, oo, with some consonants also becomes oo. So you pronounce these hoodoo, numru, numru. It's like there's a w, numru. It is not, it is not numru. It is not numru. It is numru. It's just like a w. It is not always the case. It varies with many words, but just to let you know, I mean, it is a bit complicated at first, maybe, but really, it's not a big deal. Even if you say it without the w, you get understood perfectly. But just to let you know that sometimes E becomes E and U becomes U. V, vazet, which means jar. When you have to open a jar, il vazet, v, v. But then when the v is at the end of the word, such as sportif, with a f, not with a v, you don't say sportive. But then when you add the different vowels, such as sportiva, like sportive is a male sportsman, like a sporty man, sportive. Sportiva with a v is a female, and then sportivi in plural. So when you add the vowel, you would find out. I mean, maybe as you don't know the language, maybe it will be more difficult, but you would eventually find out that when you add the vowel, you get the true sound of that letter, sportivi, or else you can say active, which means active. You say active with a f, but then attiva, attivi Or else also attività, which means activity. V, not f. F only at the end, attiv. And there's v, such as this word virya, virya, um, uh, which means exhibition or sometimes performance. When you do a good performance, jgħidu kellu wirja tajba. Kellu, he had, wirja, performance, tajba, good. Wirja tajba. Then there's the sh. The sh also has two sounds. In this one, such as in shensh, which means sun, it is derived from the Arabic word shams, this, but anyway, in Maltese it is shensh, sh. This is quite simple, shensh. But then, when it is followed with certain consonants as well, such as the B sound, you would say jbait, je, like in the word, like in the French language, je suis, j'y suis, je parle le français, je. This is how you pronounce the X, the sh, of this word, jbait. You don't say shbait. It is quite similar, you can say it, people understand it, but it's not exactly how you say it. And there's also this place in Malta, which is found in the central part of Malta, which is called Tajbish. Tajbish. J. And there's also the sh, then this sh letter, which is found, which is also pronounced the j, but when derived from English words generally, like television. You could also say televisioni, which is derived from Italian language. So we have two words, television or televisione. But personally, I distinguish between the two. For me, television is the actual device, television. And then the service is called televisioni. In fact, even in the Italian language, they distinguish between televisore and televisione. Televisore is the actual hardware thing that you have in your room, televisore. And then the service being provided to this televisore in Italian is called televisione. Now, in Maltese, the way I see it, you can use both. But personally, television is the hardware, television, pronounced with a j, not a sh, j. And then the service is televisione. But you can use both, really. You can just use both for both. You could use television anytime you want. You can use also televisioni anytime you want, practically. Then there's the z. This is quite simple. Z, zarbuna, which means a shoe. Then the collective plural, when you have like a collective, you would say zarbun. But then when you have many, you say zraben, which means shoes. Z. Or else you have the word, as we had said earlier, zazur, which has the ein, which has two letter eins in it. One is silent and one is not. Zazur starts with a z. Zazur. And also the z, when it's found at the end of the word, you pronounce it as s. Taghziz. Taghziz. You don't say taghziz, but then you say taghziza. So taghziz, taghziza. To draw something quickly, to make a sketch. When you have a sketch, doodling something, this is the word for it, taghziza. Or else when you write quickly, you could also say taghziza. So then there's the ts, which is pronounced s. When it's like you have a ts, s. For example, tsunnaria, which means carrot. We also have the word carota, which is from Italian, but we also have tsunnaria, which, as far as I know, it is derived from Tunisian or perhaps Libyan Libyan, not sure, but something like that. Sunnaria, which means carrot, or else azioni, which means action, derived from Italian azione, azioni. So this is ts. Then there is a different one, which is pronounced z. Ts, z. The first one was ts. This one is z. It's like there is a it's like there is a z, like a d, the z. So you don't say il gazzetta, gazzetta. You say gazzetta, which means a newspaper. And then there is this word which has both versions. There is the z and there is the ts. Organizzazioni. Organizzazioni. Don't pronounce it organizzazioni or else organizzazioni. Don't use both, either one for both. One is a z, the other is a ts. Organizzazione. But when you have to, but you both write them down as a ts, which is derived from Italian organizzazione, which means organization. So this is it. This is the entire alphabet in the Maltese language. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope that this was quite informative, even for Maltese speakers. This was just the alphabet. So see you next time.